Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission. Well, it's simple, really. We take a stack of sources, dive right in, and pull out the knowledge, those insights, and maybe the surprising details you need to feel genuinely well-informed.
Think of it as getting straight to the good stuff, the aha moments, maybe, without wading through everything yourself.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into this great little excerpt called Frank and the Great Lights Out Illusion.
Right, and it's quite a story. It's set in a very strict boarding school.
Yeah, and it focuses on this one student, Frank, and his, let's say, really inventive method for dealing with a rule he didn't like. Maybe a bit chaotic, too.
Oh, definitely unorthodox. So we're going to unpack the rule itself, talk about Frank, this mastermind, and then detail his plan, which involved, everyday items, but also a lot of wire.
A lot of wire. We'll
L.
see how he pulled it off, how it worked for a while, and well, how it all eventually kind of came undone.
It's a fantastic look at cleverness, structure, maybe rebellion, and just how far someone might go to read after 10 p.m.
Which, some might say is a noble goal.
Depends on the book, I suppose.
Okay, so let's set the scene first. This source puts us deep in the North Carolina mountains, a boarding school. And it really stresses how structured this place was. Very orderly.
Yeah, they use phrases like, just so. Everything had its place, its exact way of being done. Napkins folded perfectly, ties knotted just right. Precision everywhere.
And the big rule for this story, the one that really mattered in the evenings.
Mandatory lights out, 10 p.m. sharp. No wiggle room.
And they had someone to enforce this. The floor master.
That's right, usually a history teacher, apparently, patrolling the halls, flashlight in hand, clipboard ready.
The source describes this one floor master as having the spiritual aura of a grandfather clock. I love that.
It paints a picture, doesn't it? Utterly predictable, methodical, checking every single door at exactly 10:01 p.m., making sure all lights were out.
Okay, so into this rigid world steps Frank.
Yeah.
The source introduces him as bright, definitely a bit mischievous, from Long Island.
And they mention he had the smile of a future negotiator, which is interesting, but also, crucially, the brain of a rogue electrician.
Okay, that tracks. And this 10 p.m. lights out rule, it really bothered him personally.
Oh, yeah. It got in the way of everything important. Late night reading, apparently some rubber band target practice.
And my personal favorite, philosophical cereal snacking.
Which absolutely requires the quiet hours after 10 p.m., obviously. The source says he saw structure like a raccoon sees a locked trash can, intrigued, but mostly figuring out how to get inside.
So not just breaking rules for the sake of it, but finding the workaround. The system hack.
Precisely. And his plan, wow, the source calls it so eccentric, so circuitous, that maybe even Edison would have been mildly impressed. The goal, to use science to beat the system.
Operation Zap and Snooze. I like the name.
Hey.
So the core idea was simple,
Mhm.
but hard to do.
Kind of, yeah. Simple concept. Rig the floor master's own door so when he opened it to check the hall.
All the student lights would go out
Mhm.
instantly.
Exactly. Poof. Darkness. Then when he closed the door, thinking everyone was asleep, zap.
Lights back on.
Okay, but how? The mechanics sound tricky. The source mentions thumbtacks. Just thumbtacks.
That's the genius, or maybe the madness of it. Just two thumbtacks, one pushed into the edge of the floor master's door, the other into the door jamb, right opposite.
So they'd touch when the door was closed.
Right. And connecting these two thumbtacks was a very, very long hidden wire.
Right.
Door closed, thumbtacks touch, circuit complete, power flows, lights stay on in the rooms.
But when he opens the door...
The connection breaks, thumbtacks separate, circuit interrupted, SNT, all the connected lights go out. Electrically questionable, for sure. But for his purpose, brilliant.
But wait, it wasn't just his light, was it? The source says he wired up every room on the hall.
Every single one. The effort involved sounds just immense. Splicing into existing cords, crawling around, tiptoeing, using what they called heroic amounts of electrical tape.
More tape than the janitor used all semester, apparently.
Probably. And this wire, it was super thin, right? Like dental floss? Yeah. Could pass for dental floss and low lighting, the source says. And it snaked everywhere. Behind posters, under rugs.
Through potted plants, maybe even through a sock drawer, according to rumor. Just this hidden web connecting everything.
They actually figured out the total length?
They did, after the fact, of course. 374 feet of this thin wire. 374 feet. Just imagine installing that secretly.
That's staggering. And the craziest part, it actually worked.
Flawlessly, the source says. Night after night, the routine held.
So 10:01 p.m., Floormaster opens his door.
Poof. Instant darkness down the hall. He does his rounds, sees nothing amiss, closes his door.
Zap, and all the lights flick back on.
Exactly. And then, the sounds would start up again, pages turning, quiet chatter, maybe some triumphant cereal crunching.
Huh. Whispered triumph. Frank must have been a legend.
An absolute underground hero, the invisible hand keeping the lights on.
But you just knew it couldn't last. Something had to give. And the source points to a school tour.
Yep. Enter the headmaster. Described as stately, liked his bow ties, used words like capital and gumption. Very much the authority figure.
And he's showing around prospective parents
Mm.
and their son, Charles, who was afraid of pine cones.
Okay. Random detail, but yeah. So they're touring the dorms, headmaster praising the discipline, the order.
And then, room 3B. He spots something.
Just a wire. A thin little wire that seemed out of place.
And being perhaps naturally suspicious of stray wires.
He gave it a little tug, maybe just curious, maybe, as the source suggests, a mild distrust of anything flexible and coppery.
And that one tug. It just kept coming, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. The wire led under the bed, then through a heating vent, then behind a wardrobe, then out into the hallway.
And into the next room. And the next.
Every single room. They ended up calling maintenance to trace the whole thing.
Yeah.
All 374 feet of it.
Oh, boy. And Frank, did he know?
The source says he was elsewhere, maybe eating toast, but he heard the commotion, the sound of wire being pulled through walls, and he recognized the headmaster's tone of shocked indignation. He knew.
He sensed doom approaching. The jig was up.
Completely. Game over.
So the aftermath. He gets called in.
Summoned by lunch, yes. The headmaster delivered the verdict. Frank, he apparently said very seriously, you are grounded.
And Frank's first thought was like, modern punishment, no phone.
Right, but the headmaster clarified, no, literally grounded. You may not leave this campus for 3 weeks.
Ah, physically grounded. Got it.
Frank just sort of nodded, took it in. But the source adds this lovely touch he couldn't help but smile just a tiny bit.
Why?
Because as he saw it, even though he was grounded, he had for a short time become the Benjamin Franklin of Bedtime Rebellion.
I can respect that self-assessment. So what was the final fallout, the legacy?
Well, besides Frank's 3 weeks of campus confinement, there was a change to the official school rules, a new line added to the handbook.
Under electrical safety, no doubt.
You guessed it. Very specific, clearly born from this incident. Thumbtacks shall never, under any circumstance, complete a circuit.
Amazing. So, okay, we've had fun with Frank's story, but what's the takeaway here for us beyond just a clever prank?
Well, it's a great story, for sure. But it does, I think, highlight something interesting about systems, even really rigid, buttoned-up systems like that school.
That they have weak points, vulnerability.
Exactly. Unexpected ones. Frank didn't challenge the rule head-on. He went after the enforcement. He figured out how they checked compliance, and he spoofed the check.
And it really shows how looking at the tiny details can be key, right? The whole thing, that massive network, it all boiled down to 2 little thumbtacks.
Right. Sometimes focusing on those small points of contact, those hidden wires, tells you more about how a big, complex system actually functions than just looking at the official rules or the grand design.
That feels relevant today, doesn't it? With information overload, trying to grasp huge topics.
Yeah, it really does. Sometimes you get lost trying to see the whole picture. But focusing on one specific, maybe weird detail, the 374 feet of wire, or that thumbtack rule ending up in the handbook, can suddenly make the underlying mechanics click. It illuminates things.
It's like understanding the mechanics, the hidden connections, is the real key, whether it's school rules or technology or how ideas spread.
Finding those connections, those points of leverage or interruption, it gives you insight. It shows you how things work and maybe, reveals potential workarounds or efficiencies.
So Frank's story, this whole lights out illusion, it kind of shows that real understanding and sometimes real change or subversion comes from digging into those mechanics, finding the simple bits inside the complexity.
Even if the application, like Frank's wiring job, ends up being wildly complex itself, it started simple.
It definitely leaves you thinking. In the systems you deal with every day, work, information, maybe even just social stuff, where are those hidden connections, those little thumbtack circuits waiting to be understood.
Or maybe, just maybe, cleverly tweaked, something to ponder.